today's date? 12?
12, yeah. January 12, 2014. It's recording and broadcasting. Yeah, she said she was.
Really quick announcement to everyone watching online. Starting in February, we will be broadcasting from YouTube, no longer using Ustream. We will post the link on the mysticknowledge.org on the location where you usually view the live stream. We'll be posting the link there, as well as sending out an email to let everyone know that we're switching to YouTube. So in February, if you log into Ustream and you don't see us, that's because we're no longer there. We're on YouTube. Right? Thank you.
Okay, this class is on the chakra system. It's impossible to do this in one class, so we might take 2 or 3 classes to do it. That's if we want to do an in-depth thing on. The thing about the chakra system, and most people get this wrong, is that the chakra system is not exclusive to the body. Everybody understand that, right? The ones who big enough for what, right? Okay? When I say that, what do I mean?
It's more than just the physical body.
Well, they encompass all of existence, the different levels of existence that
Right.
exist beyond the physical body.
Right. If you study the Hindu or Buddhist teachings, you'll notice that every time you see the chakra system described, they always talk about the rims that particular chakra is connected to. Or you may see, this, which means the same thing. Okay? Because why? Because on each level of the chakra system, there's many realms of existence. And the chakra system itself is a vortex center, right? Who can finish this?
It's a vortex center in the center.
It's a vortex center of what?
Power.
Power, but more than power.
Consciousness.
Consciousness. It's a vortex center of consciousness. Okay? So, you would notice this if you were psychic enough. You would notice that when a person began to speak, if you're looking at their aura, you'll notice that their expression will, the thought formations that come from their body, it will come from one of the chakras. If they're talking about something that's very low or related to the basic consciousness, you'll see it originate from either the base of the spine, the sex center, or the solar plexus center. You'll actually see the aura moving around, and you'll see those thought forms come out on that level. If they're talking about something more spiritual, you'll see it. You'll see that the thought forms originate from the heart center up. Okay, and every thoughts are not necessarily, although they are, but they're not necessarily sound. They're more pictures, but they're subtle sound that formulate pictures. Okay, so every time you have a thought, or even while I'm speaking, it actually manifests itself from one of your chakras. Okay, from one of your major chakras. And you can see that. So, because why? Because each chakra is a level of consciousness. In fact, the chakra system itself is a system that splits the consciousness up into many, many parts. Okay, remember we talked about, it was a couple of weeks ago or last week, we talked about the soul, and how the soul pushes, bring this Shakti power together in order to form consciousness, right? And what does it do? It pushes the Shakti power down through Shushunda until it reaches that equilibrium called the Muladhara, which is the base of the spine. And there it goes into this Kundalini, and then the Kundalini releases this para sound, right? And it splits up into 242,000 pathways and enter into each chakra, which is 108 chakras. That vehicle of consciousness called Kundalini takes a part of itself and splits itself up and manifests itself in all 108 chakras. Okay? And that's what creates the basic consciousness, or the split of consciousness. Okay? So, and if you notice, what's significant about that number?
9.
It's 9, but what's also significant? Related to prayer.
Oh, the
Mala beads and the rosaries, right? Right? On the Mala beads and the rosaries have 108 beads on it. Huh? Well, it can't be that unless it happened. If someone's selling it and it's not 100 beads, you know it's not authentic. Because the Hindus, the Buddhists, and the Catholic, they sell their rosary necklace, 108 beads, and they sell their the Mala beads, 108 beads. Why? Because it's designed to actually, when you are chanting your mantra, it's designed to place that mantra on all 108 chakras. Okay, that's what it's designed for. Okay, that's what the Mala beads are designed for. So, and that's how they count it. You chant the mantra, and you complete one mala, that's 108 times. And it's designed to place the mantra on all 108 levels of consciousness of yourself. Okay? So that's, once you realize this, you're way ahead of everybody else. Because most people look at the chakras as some type of mysterious thing, and some type of power or whatever, and really it's the levels of your consciousness. It's the levels of your consciousness. Okay? Now also, another thing, what's going through, how many nadis go through these chakras? Huh? Well, I'm talking about all 108 chakras.
242,000.
242,000. We're told that there's about 242,000 Nazis. Now, of course, in some teachings they say it's up to 700, but 700,000. But what they're doing, they're counting branches because it branches off 3 times. Okay, but I'm with a group of mystic yogis that say there's 242,000 pathways of Nadis. Okay, so those 242,000 Nadis go through, they enter and exit these consciousness, bringing the life force of the Kundalini consciousness through those Nadis, through those realms of existence, to allow the consciousness to experience those realms of existence on some type of level, whether it's conscious level or unconscious level. Okay? Right now, you are experiencing the physical plane of existence, right? This physical plane of existence is a realm of existence. It's associated with the base chakra, but the uniqueness of this physical realm, according to the ancient teachings, is that this is the realm. If you look at any, this is the physical realm, let's say. We're going to look at it vertical, but it's not necessarily vertical. Okay? Now there's negative realms below the physical realm. It nibbles up to 7, but really more, because each one of them have sub-realms, okay? And each one of these positive realms, right, have sub-realms as well. Now the physical realm, in fact, we can actually, because it's 2, right? The physical realms share both realms. Physical realms share both of these realms, unfortunately. So the uniqueness about this physical realm is that it's connected to both. It's a zero ground, right? And we're connected to all those realms because we draw our emotions, our personality from all these realms. Okay? And everyone, let's say, for lack of words or whatever, let's call these the hells, okay? Or the lower astral realms, all right? For lack of words. And let's call these up here the higher realms. Okay? Starting from the lower higher realms to the higher realms, right? Now, the thing about it, the people here will reincarnate here. And the people here will reincarnate here. So this is the zero ground. So we're connected to all the realms. And our bodies are designed, these were originally originally made for the animals. If you go and look at the ancient teachings, you'll notice that the chakras in the leg is related to the animal kingdom. The chakras from up is related to the human kingdom. Okay? So, but of course, mankind, with his negative thoughts and actions, have expanded the hells, or the lower astral realms. And now when he recycled himself from the physical realm to the subtle realms, this has expanded. In fact, our greatest population on earth, right, is where?
In the lower realms.
In the lower hells. Okay. If someone was in a spaceship looking from the outside, looking down on this earth, and they were able to see all the realms of existence, they'll notice that our greatest population is in the lower hells. So, what does that tell us? We have some very negative thoughts and actions. All right. So what happened is, with the different religions from all over the world, they always tell us to do what? Carve out what? Our actions, our thoughts and actions. Accept certain moral values. Serve, love people. Stop all the hating and all that. Because why? Surely it is those things that remove you from having to recycle yourself down to the lower hells. It's not God, it's you. Of course, God is within you, and God gives you the power to do whatever you do, but you have free will. And your free will can remove you from any situation you're in. Okay? So each chakra is connected to one of these realms. And the lower chakras deal with heavy, emotional, negative type personalities, almost unconscious type personalities. And the higher chakras began to move away from those type of personalities. All right. The Muladhara, or the base of the spine, because this is the base of the spine here. The animal kingdom, this is their crown chakra. For the humans, this is our crown chakra. Okay? So the animals strive to enter into the human kingdom, and we strive to enter into the kingdom of the avatars, the cosmic masters, the ascended masters, the spiritual hierarchy of earth. That's where we want to go. All right, because at that point we break the cycle of rebirth. Okay, we no longer have to be reborn unconsciously. We could be reborn consciously. Okay, and that's the difference. The animals, they want to break this cycle of instinctive living. They want to come into self-consciousness, because the animals lack self-consciousness. Okay, yeah.
I have a question. Is there any way that you can check that which higher realm you're at?
Is there any
An
way?
indicator, an indicator machine that will tell you you're on number 3?
I don't know about indicator machines, but I mean, as you do your own, the best machine there is you.
Yes.
Is by developing yourself, developing your concentration, which leads to contemplation, which leads to meditation. And you can know exactly where you are.
Okay.
I mean, you are the best indicator.
Sure.
No one can really come and tell you, well,
Yes.
they can, but only in initiation. They can tell you your last life. There's a law against telling people their last lives. So if you go to a last life or past life reader, know that you're wasting your time and money. All right? Because if they knew, they wouldn't tell you. They would not tell you. Okay?
Nehemiah,
Yeah.
if a person is on the lower realm do they create blockages for themselves?
Of course, that's the only reason why they're there.
So how do you remove those blockages?
Through right action, right thought and action.
But, I mean, if a person is stuck on that particular thought.
That's how they do it. Through right thought and action. Prayer,
And meditation.
mantra, meditative type practices.
So when your thought tells you something negative, you go and do something positive.
Yeah, you raise it to a higher level. In other words, if you manifest a negative thought, right, that negative thought is coming from the lower realms, from the lower realms of yourself, from your lower chakras, right? So if you take that energy, pull it back in you, and burn it up, or raise it to a higher level, then you have not polluted the atmosphere with that negative thought. In other words, so then therefore the reaction, because you created an action, so now a reaction must come back to you. But if you stop that action and diverted it to a higher level, then what happens? A good reaction comes back to you. You understand what I'm saying? So in other words, like, a couple of weeks ago we was talking about brahmacharya, right? And I was explaining that, let's say a young man, he see a beautiful woman come by, and he think vile thoughts about that woman, but immediately he say, "Oh, that's not right." So he take that thought back into himself, and then say that's someone's sister, that's a future mother, or someone, because why? He has lifted that thought to a higher level instead of thinking something negative. And that's that's a yogi technique to cleanse yourself, to actually to actually raise your thoughts or your thought and actions to a higher level. Because once he entered a thought, once he associate that female with his sister or his mother, it changes his emotional output. So that helps to transform that thought. Another way of doing it is actually, you have a terrible thought of somebody going into an accident. Actually, imagine that you're reaching out from the solar plexus center. You're reaching these magnetic hands out, bringing that thought form back into your solar plexus center, bringing a white light down to the solar plexus center, and burn that thought up. And then imagine that energy is being used for something better, and divorce yourself from that type of thinking. That's another method to use. If you can't figure out a way to transform that thought to a higher level, okay?
Yeah, that's amazing what you said. Yeah, it's really powerful. It's all in the mental. It reminds me a story of a guy in Hawaii. It's have you heard about Ho'oponopono?
No.
It's in Hawaii in a mental hospital. There was all kind of the worst criminal, like murderers, like serious kind of criminals, and everyone thought these guys are just gonna die because the government is just gonna send them to lifelong prison. There's no way they're coming out. And what happened was one doctor went inside the mental hospital. All he did was he looked at their file and he cleaned inside within himself. He's like, why they are in my awareness? That means the problem is within me. So he just stated like, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. He just cleaned them inside. He took 100% responsibility, and after a couple of months, everyone became healed. It's like, it's a real story. It's a book called Zero Limits. That's the book by Dr. Everything is
Zero
mind.
Limits.
It's all in the mind. You inside. You
True
clean it.
story?
Yeah, it's a true story. It's an absolute true story called Zero Limits. And can you please talk about the realm number 7, the higher realm? Like what happened there?
Like what? What do you want to know?
Like on the 7, what happens when you said you free yourself from the cycle of reincarnation?
Well, that's we're gonna get into that.
Okay, later. Okay, sure.
But just a short version. Let's say you heard of Kundalini.
Yes, continue.
Okay, Kundalini is the life force within the body. It's a vehicle of consciousness that the soul uses in order to experience life after life after life after life, right? Our main goal, the only reason why we're here on this level of existence is is to control the flow of Kundalini up and down these chakras. That's the only reason why we're here. Once we gain control of that, then we break this cycle of reincarnation. Okay, that's the only reason why. I mean, if I give you that and you study that, then you finish. You know, because you can connect everything else to that. Because why? Because all our lessons are within these chakras. Okay, so in other words, in order to go, and unfortunately, there's only one way to do it. Through raising that power of Kundalini. Now, in order to raise the power of Kundalini, we must be able to actually drain the Nadis, the 242,000 Nadis, right? 100% of the Kundalini is at the base of the spine in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Maybe between 5 to 10% of this Kundalini becomes active, and it deposits itself in the 242,000 Nadi pathways. Okay? All right? So the other 95 or 90 to 95%, right, of the Kundalini becomes dormant. It goes into a sleep. Okay?
That's how we operate now.
And
That's how we operate now.
yeah, that's how we operate. So there's only 5 to 10% that's actually of our life force is actually within the Nadi pathways. Now, yoga, the practice of yoga teaches you to take control over this 5 to 10%. And one of the ways you take control of this 5% is by the most simple way I can tell you, and you'll notice this if you continue to teach this, is predetermine all your actions. Simple as that. By predetermining all your actions, you become enlightened.
Like, what do you mean by predetermined?
In other words, let's say if someone came and did something to you that upset you, let's say they come and slap you, right? So if you allow yourself to do what?
To get angry and
just
stuff.
jump back at them and pick them up, body slam and everything, right? You didn't predetermine your actions, right?
Yes, yes.
In other words, you didn't think and then act. You act by instinct like an animal, like a restless animal. You just charge your enemy without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay? So at this level, you shouldn't do that. You should think and then respond.
Yeah, and in reality, when you're in more control with your mind, they wouldn't even come slap you because if you're in a high vibrational state,
right.
you don't vibrate that kind of stuff. Yeah,
That's right.
That's
That's right. Because when you predetermine your action, you demand a reaction to you in a way that only does what? Propel you, not to stop you in any way. So that's one of the great secrets of yoga, of becoming enlightened. You predetermine all your actions. Now, let's get a little bit more specific. In predetermining the actions, what do? We use, let's go to Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga teaches us to do what? It teaches us, it gives us the 8 limbs of yoga. The 8 limbs, the first is, I can't remember exactly, but the first is like control your emotions. Take on a moral character about yourself. All right, that's one of the first things they tell you to do. Right, which is a number of things. Okay. And then they tell you to control your your sex energy. That's like was one of the top things to do. All right, so that's a part of your moral thing too. You don't just go out and have crazy sex, because when you engage in sex, you actually release the essence. In fact, the most concentrated form of Kundalini in the body is what? Anyone know?
Ojaz.
Ojaz, right? They tell us this in the ancient teachings. And Ojaz can be considered semen, or some type of female orgasm, which is orgasm, but it's worse on men than women, because men lose more in the act of sex than what women do. Of course, women are more advanced than men anyway; they're more spiritual than men. So we're more more savage-like, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. Now, what happens is when you lose this is the binding energy in the body. If you study Ojaz, you'll notice that Ojaz is part of it. It's the energy that holds everything together. It's the essence of your vital life force. So that's one of the things they tell you to do. Now, there's a series of studies. I'm not going to go all the way through the 8 limbs of yoga, but study the 8 limbs of yoga under Raja Yoga. And one of the things they tell you, one of the last things, I think it's the 6th, it talks about concentration. Concentration is directing one's mind down one channel of thought. Okay? One channel of thought. Now, in concentration, when you can direct the mind down one channel of thought, what really happens is you begin to tap into the Nadi pathways, because you cannot have thought without the Nadi pathways, because the Nadi pathways carries your consciousness. Okay, so you begin to gain control over the Nadis through concentration. Then, when you can control your thoughts and without letting anything, let's say if you want to concentrate on one thing, and you can do that without any type of interruption, what happens, that thought process becomes polarized to a certain degree. It becomes polarized, and it begins to like, it goes into this hyper speed level, which brings you to the next level of contemplation. Contemplation is clairvoyance. You begin to see psychically, okay? Because why? Because the train of thought, after you have brought about this singularity of thought, it begins to attract like things to it, things that's associated with it in the abstract world that we can't normally see. Just like right now, we see it on maybe 1 or 2 octaves, right? Or spectrums, okay? And we hear on 1 or 2 octaves. So what happens if we can tune our body, our sight and hearing, we can begin to see the spectrum from many, many different levels. Well, concentration and contemplation actually does that, okay? Concentration leads you to contemplation. And then once you can contemplate, you develop your senses. You develop, because why? You clear the Nadi pathways.
What realm do you tap into when you contemplate?
What?
What realms do you tap into?
You can tap into many realms when you contemplate. It depends on your level of contemplation. Okay, you can tap into multiple realms of contemplation. So what happens is that your Nadi pathways begin to clear, right? And a greater percentage of this Kundalini power is operating, right? And then it begins it begins, the first movement of this is right now, you're operating at this level, right? What happens, you begin to operate more on the sex level. Kundalini moves and begin to activate the nadis and activate the chakras at the sex center. And then as you become good, it begins to activate the solar plexus center. All right? And you can actually see. You can actually see the aura, see visions, hear, taste, touch on a psychic level. What's happening is that the physical senses, right? With what?
The astral.
The astral senses. See, remember, you have an astral body that's exactly identical to this. It's a subtle body. Those senses begin to merge. All right? I'm telling you the most simple way because you'll have to wade through a lot of Sanskrit text to understand this. And what happens, they begin to merge. And from that merger comes psychic powers or cities, right?
Does food has to do with becoming more psychic?
Yes, it does. You go into the details. If you want to, I'll go into that, but maybe in another class. But we have some YouTube videos where I go deep into it. It's like 2 or 3 classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go deep into this. But let's say that after you get this level of contemplation, you begin to, you're given exercises to tap into the Kundalini, right? And to move the Kundalini up through Shushuna, up through the spine. All right? Now, when you get to meditation, when you get to contemplation, you can partially move the Kundalini. In contemplation, you can partially move the Kundalini up and down these particular, up and down the spine. If you bring it up, you have to bring it back down. Now, when you get to meditation, right? You drain the whole body of this 10%. And you bring it back and make this whole. And then you push 100% of the Kundalini up the spine. And that's the only thing that fully opens the chakras. Now, when you do that, you go into a conscious state of death. So wherever you remove the Kundalini from, everything below that is dead. And you remove your consciousness and you place your consciousness in each chakra, and that's what fully opens up the chakra. Okay? The weekend classes where people say that they can help you open your chakras, run like hell from them, because they can't do it. Okay? Unless they're a master of masters where they can just tap you and raise your Kundalini up. But if they selling that, they not that. Okay? Because they won't sell it, they'll give it away free. And they will only give it to you if you are ready and you deserve it. So the 100%, once you get into a meditative state, you can move that Kundalini up. And it's very, very dangerous. If you make a mistake, you die. You die a physical death, only to be reborn again and try again. But
Game over.
but you have to raise it up. You have to raise up all 100% of the Kundalini in order to open the chakras. And once you open it, you get this. Within the chakra, there's this thing called what?
Bindu.
The Bindu. Bindu is a point of consciousness, or the spiritual germ of your existence. It is the all knowledge space. So at that level, so you open the chakra at that level, and you gain this all knowledge space. You understand hundreds and thousands of things that there is no way you can come back and actually express or explain to anyone. You know, maybe you can explain 2% of it. And then maybe it may take you 10 years to translate it. Just a few seconds or a few minutes of this state. But you know within yourself, but there's actually no language that can actually give full explanation of the wonder of this meditative state.
That's samadhi. Did you get access to that in Hindu?
Well, it's not necessarily samadhi, it's meditation. You have to go through meditation many, many times in order to reach a level of samadhi and reach a level of cosmic consciousness. Okay? But in the gist, that's what that is. Okay? So once you have reached, once you have did this many, many times, you get here. All right? And in the crown chakra, really, well, before you get here, you have to break the ring pass knot of the throat chakra. And then that tells you how to go to the Christ chakra. And you have to open the Christ chakra a number of times in order to go to the crown chakra. And once you get to the crown chakra and you have burned up all the necessary negative karma of all your past lives, right? Because you actually see what you have to do in order to do that. And then you can enter ascension after burning up all that negative karma that's needed to be burned up. Okay? And you can break the wheel of rebirth at that point. And this takes many, many lifetimes to do. You know, once you go into a meditative state, they say, well, you can, after 11 lives, if you make those 11 lives correct, you can enter into this state. Okay? So you have to, that's how, and it takes many, many, many lifetimes to get to that meditative state. Okay? So that's what the chakra system is used for. And there's a lot of other stuff in the chakra system that's beneficial to us for right now. Okay?
I have a quick question about the meditation.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, recently I heard that some people, they talk about meditating under a copper pyramid, like because copper they take away all the radiation and stuff like that from the air, so you can meditate deeply. That's what they said, like under a pyramid. Have you heard anything about that?
They do what now?
Copper, like meditating under a copper pyramid. It's like a full frame copper rod, and just meditating under it, because they say copper it just blocks all the radiation and all the stuff on the air, like internet access and.
Well, I don't know if all that's.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you, see if you heard.
You could use copper in order to help cleanse the aura.
Okay.
That's what you can use copper for. There's instruments that you can, I guess the pyramid is one of them, and that's something old too. It's nothing new.
Yes.
And then they have devices that you can actually, I think that their society has one too, where you actually wrap your body, you wrap your body in this copper. I guess from the forehead down to the sole of your feet, and then one across either the solar plexus or the heart center. And then you do some type of visualization type practice, right?
Wow.
And deep breathing practice in order to help cleanse the aura. Okay. It's not going to take you into meditation. Okay. In order to go into meditation, you have to be able to concentrate on one thing for at least 12 hours straight.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Because I do it every day for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and that just makes me like so much happy and bliss and everything.
Well, when
Like,
you could do it for 12 hours without letting anything enter you,
yes,
into
yes.
your mind, right? Then you can begin to move the power of Kundalini.
Wow.
But by
Okay.
cleansing your aura, it helps you to concentrate better.
Yes, that's right. By cleansing your aura. That's why in the practice of Raja Yoga, they give you at least 5 things to do before they tell you to begin to concentrate. So, and it's they have you do that for a reason. Yeah, you have to restrain, have a more living observance of God, devotion, devati, right? It's page 25. And they give you mudra yoga, different postures to sit, and that restricts the energy of the body. Then they give you the pranayama, where you learn to breathe in and out, because without concentration, without any type of meditation, without pranayama, the meditative practice is useless anyway. And then they give you exercise to showing you how to withdraw your consciousness, and then you go into concentration. So there's a number of things you have to do in order to prepare to do that. So that's that's why. And then by then, if you did all those 5 things above, you should have cleansed. If you made that a part of your life, you should have cleansed your aura by then, or in the process of constantly cleansing your aura, because you just can't cleanse your aura, because you can cleanse your aura and then you can go and think something crazy, and you just came back, and then the samskaras came up from 4 lives back, and you just polluted your aura again. So it's an everyday thing. You have to make it a part of your life. Okay.
You talk about blanking the mind. See that other?
Huh?
About blanking the mind.
Oh yeah, blanking the mind is wrong. Do not blank the mind.
What do you mean by blanking the mind?
Just
Thinking of nothing.
not thinking of nothing.
Okay.
That's a practice done for the Lord hells. It's as simple as I can make it. Okay. When you blank the mind, imagine if you was living in a crime-infested area, right? And then you say, okay, it's time to go to sleep. And then you say, okay, let me get just right. And you go and unlock the door and open the door and open all the windows and then get in your bed. That's what you're doing when you blank the mind. Okay, you opening the door for anyone to come in and rob you, steal, or kill you. Okay? So don't blank the mind. Okay, because when you blank the mind, you open your aura up. Any discarnated entity that's looking for a joyride can lock themselves into your aura and send you in some schizo rage. Okay? So don't do that.
Let's focus on one thing.
All right? So when you begin to focus your mind, right? What happens is that you strengthen the aura, and it's like creating a screen around the aura. Because normally when you let's say you let's make a stick person here, I guess. Sort of like a stick person. Let's say this is the person, right? You have an aura around you. The person's normal aura is ragged, like this, if you look at it. It's wavy, right? That waveness is mental activity, right? being controlled. Now, there was a great yogi called Patanjali. Anybody heard of Patanjali or the Sutras of Patanjali? Patanjali said, stop the modifications. He described these as the vrittis, the modifications. And because right now we're being bombarded by the light, by sound, by radio waves, by all types of things, by the mental thoughts of all of you all are affecting me and everybody in this room, okay? So, due to that, your chakras and aura is picking up those thoughts, even though you are totally unaware of it. And that's what mold and shape your personality or your response, you know? So what happens is, when you begin to concentrate on one thing, it creates a screen around the body because you are internalizing your mental body, and the aura is your mental body, okay? So when you do that, what happens? This waves becomes like this. It goes away. Yeah.
Do you think that scientists have been able to discover some kind of machine that you can see physical humans' aura?
Yeah, they did that decades ago.
What is it called? Like, I would like to know this.
That's a camera.
It's a camera.
Like Carillion photography?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Carillion
And they
photography.
did that long time ago. And even before the Carillion photography, back in the 1800s, I can't remember the book. Back in the late 1800s, they created a way to see it as well, where they had these screens. They had these giant screens, and they put some type of chemical in it, and then they put the person behind it, and they shine the light through it, and they were able to see the auras. So it's all different type of methods to be able to do it. And then later on, I think it was a German lady that actually discovered the camera in this last time.
And is there any physical proof that 2 minutes ago you said that in this moment we are being affected by everybody's thought at the same time, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm affected by yours.
Mhm.
Is there any scientific anything?
Yes, that's historical. Just go read history.
That's the one. Okay.
I
can
mean,
see this kind of-
in other words, when someone discovered the phone,
Yeah.
it was discovered in several different places all around the world at the same time, right?
That's amazing.
Because
Like
why?
100
Because
monkeys in
it was
there.
placed on the mental belt around the earth. All right. They did a study with some monkeys one time.
100 monkeys. Yes.
Yeah, remember the 100 monkeys?
monkeys in this.
Where they peeled the one began to
Potatoes.
peel the banana, and all them around the world began to peel the banana.
All the
Because
island. Yes.
There's a mental belt around the world. Okay, so we share that collective consciousness. Okay, so this is what concentration does. It stops the modification and it creates a screen. Also, the mantra creates a screen quicker than anything, because mantra plays off the power of the chakras itself. Okay, the chakras are actually formulated through mantra. So when you chant a mantra, it calibrates the chakra to a certain degree because as the life force or the consciousness within the Nadi pathways pass through the chakras, it vibrates them to a certain degree to create a screen around the aura, around the body, and it speeds up the aura to a certain degree where it begins to burn up those negative thought forms within the aura. And it begins to throw off those negative thought forms in the aura. So mantra is another method of concentration. You chant the mantra repeatedly over and 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 over again, without allowing anything to enter your mind other than the mantra.
So you're practicing concentration when you're doing the mantra.
That's
but
right.
Mantra is a specific sound, vibration. So
Yeah.
it-
And it's cleansing the aura at the same time. So that's another way to cleanse the aura and develop concentration. Okay? So that's another method, yeah.
Is it necessary to always put an intention behind your chant mantra? Like if you want to,
If you want to, yeah, that'll be good too.
but if you don't put an intention before, it would automatically just cleanse your aura.
Yeah, it's going to, because it's going to have an effect on you. If your intention is concentration and healing of the body, then that's what it's going to do.
Isn't it better though to understand what you're saying as opposed, because some people chant the mantra, they don't really know what it means.
There's no real meaning to mantra. People guess a meaning, but there's no. It's a sound vibration.
Yeah.
So
It's a
specifically
sound
just
vibration.
the sound.
It's a sound, yes. On each chakra, on each level of the chakra, there's a letter. Okay? On each level of the chakra, there's a letter. There's 4 letters here, there's 6 letters here, there's 10 letters here, there's 12 letters here, there's 16 letters here, and there's 2 letters here. They come to be 50 letters. Okay? These 50 letters make up the alphabet of Sanskrit. Now, from those letters, the adept or master goes into meditation, meditate on those letters, and he arranged them into mantras. Okay? Now, each letter is actually what's called a BJ within the chakra, or petal. All right? It vibrates a particular sound, and it vibrates it on several different levels. It has a soundless sound, right? And the soundless sound actually is a mode of what? Motion. Just like in the beginning, that's what Vak is, because it's a parasound. Okay? It's a parasound. And what it is actually a mode of motion, right? It's like first motion. And that motion starts all other motion connected to that. So it's more of a vibration, that it's a creative vibration more than there's a meaning behind it. You had a question?
You answered it.
Okay. So what happens is that don't get caught up into the meaning, because people associate meaning with the mantra, and they actually limit the meaning of that mantra, because that mantra can have 100 meanings if you want to be technical about it. So it's more about the vibration and the energy created from that mantra. Okay? It's more about that. Because when you begin to analyze the mantra, you'll notice that the mantra may activate 4 or 5 different chakras based on, if you just look at the letters within the mantra. All right? And the energy associated with the letter. Because the letter itself represents energy. Okay? Any other questions?
The mantra is just to like quiet your mind so that the analyzing mind kind of stops, and it just
No,
goes
not
into higher
necessarily.
vibrationally.
No. The mantra is consciousness. Okay? You understand that?
Consciousness, yeah.
Yeah, mantra, because you cannot have a chakra without having a mantra. So the mantra itself is you.
Bija.
Huh?
We're talking particularly about the root sound, right? The
Yeah.
sound.
Because within each chakra, let's look at a typical chakra, right? This have 4 petals, right? And those 4 petals represents the Muladhara chakra, which is what?
Base of the spine.
The base of the spine. Right? Now, these are the 4 petals. And this. Now, what do we know about this? We know that the Nadis come through this and back up. Through this and back up. The Nadis represents what? Consciousness, the flow of consciousness. In the Nadis, you have the idol Nadi, right? And you have the Pingala. Now, the idol Nadi is negative, right? And Pingala is positive. It's a positive flow, it's a negative flow and a positive flow of energy. But they are really one energy, right? But they travel differently. Now, this represents the mental energy. And this represents the vital energy. All right? Both of them represents energy. And what happens is when they intersect within the chakra, you have what? What do you have when they intersect in the chakra?
Consciousness.
You have consciousness. Okay? That's how you are thinking and breathing and moving right now. Is that these two intersect here and you experience this physical plane.
So that's why each chakra has an even number for petals. That's divided by 2 for one of them Pingala, one of them minor.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons. But yeah.
On each petal, 2 nadis are connected to them. The Ida and the Pingala.
No, I'm not saying that. No. It could be hundreds of petals going through there. I mean, it could be hundreds of nadis going through there. But the petal itself is a sound vibration that the nadi travel through this sound vortex, which vibrates the consciousness, right? Now, what does sound do? What's one thing we notice? You was telling me the other day. What's one thing we notice sound do to objects?
Oh, it creates shapes.
It creates
Shapes
shapes.
form.
It creates shapes. Okay? So as this subtle sound vibrates the consciousness, it shapes the consciousness into whatever it needs to be shaped to. In other words, it transfers some type of meaning or some type of whatever to it. It shapes it, or molds it, or vibrates it to a different realm of existence, in other words.
Why is it that in the Muladhara there's a tendency for, our negative backward state of consciousness to exist there? 'Cause it's like an extension of these petals, but we used it wrongly,
Yeah.
but it's still an extension of it, so it allows that negativity to exist there, correct? So,
To a certain degree, because why? Because we're told that the original man, the original Adam. Let's go back. Let's do some
history.
let's do some aphorisms now. The original Adam, right? His base of spine was not at the base of the spine. You know, the Adamic man, his consciousness started here at the heart chakra. So before the so-called fall of man, okay, and the whole story in the Bible is symbology. It's not meant to be taken literally. Okay, the fall of man brought about these three realms and all the realms after that. Because the original Adam did not have, in fact, he was formed from the earth, right? According to the symbology. What is that telling us? That's telling us that he came from the logos of the earth. Okay? Not from the womb of a woman. See, he came from the logos of the earth. And in other words, this earth is a living, breathing entity. Yes. All right? So when a new life is introduced to the earth, the proper way is that life come through the logos of the earth. Because as scientists have discovered that everything in our body is what? Is in the earth. And a lot of the minerals within the earth is within us. You know, if they wanted to harvest silver, they could kill a lot of people and get silver out of our bones, or because the silver and the gold is within us, whether you know it or not. Most elements is within us. All right, we're made up from the earth. So the whole story of Adam was that when God breathed life into him and he was formed from the earth, and then God breathed life to him, all of that, there was something behind it. Now, of course, because he was formed of earth, he had no navel. There was no use for a navel. There was no use for really a sexual organ. There was no use for these things. But when he split his consciousness up, he went from a homogeneous being to a heterogeneous being. What happens? He took a part of himself and created woman. So he removed the psychic part of himself and created a woman. All right? So that was still him. And she was, and he was her and she was him. So now both of them are walking down life, experiencing life, and then one of them, because it's the psychic part of them, they had more curiosity, right? So they wanted explanation for things, right? So then the tree of knowledge that they wasn't ready for was really a part of them. It wasn't nothing external, right? So the whole thing is like it really goes back. In fact, if you go back to Genesis, like I told you, you'll see the constitution of man, right? So you'll see how the journey begins, right? So after Eve supposedly ate of the whatever fruit it was, right? She gained this understanding, this knowledge, right? And then it was forbidden. Remember what I was telling you all the other day? Nobody remember?
Tell us about
Huh?
Which other day?
Well, we talked about this. Who remembers?
Oh, Abraham is a mantra.
Huh?
Abraham?
You remember this?
Yeah.
the other day, remember? We talked about it. It's called the eye maker.
Aham means I.
Huh?
Aham in Sanskrit means I.
The eye maker. You don't, nobody remembers.
Yeah, you were telling us how Abraham was actually a mantra.
No, we're not going there right. I'm saying,
Okay.
but remember? Nobody remember this?
Yeah, I think I remember you.
I remember the word, yeah.
Remember when the soul came from the spirit, right? The soul was what? Pure. It had no knowledge of what?
Good or bad?
Of experience. Because why? It was all aware. Right? So therefore, it had no knowledge of experiencing so-called manifestation. Because it was aware of everything. What can it experience? It knows everything. Yeah. If God is perfect and the soul is connected to the spirit and the spirit is God, it never left the position of God or the absolute, therefore, it had no reason to experience. But in order to gain so-called knowledge, right, of experience, it had to do what?
To limit
It
it.
had to involve itself. So the first step was Adam, being homogeneous, moved to do what?
Divide itself.
Divide itself. And then, once it divided itself, another part of it did what? It needed to divide itself even more. So it went through the process of doing what? Eating the fruit from the tree, which gave it so-called knowledge or wisdom, right? Beyond itself, but in a what? A weakened state of consciousness. See? So then what happens? Eve began to do what? Became the barrier of what? Of all mankind. So that's what it's the story of evolution or the constitution of man, talking about how God, the earth and the sun, did what? Created a body for a soul. That soul had to go through the process of doing what? Of dividing itself, of involving itself, right? And then once she received the knowledge of how to continue the process, even Adam and Eve began to do what? Have children. And from that came mankind. There was nothing evil what Eve did. She was going through the process. She was doing the express will of what? Of Adam and God. The serpent power was what?
Kundalini.
Kundalini. You know, the serpent wasn't the devil. You know, it wasn't Satan. It was actually a limited state of consciousness. That's what it was. It was a limited state of consciousness. It wasn't something evil. You know, so you have to, when you begin to study these teachings, you'll see how it all breaks out. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hundreds of nadis can be going into each chakra. Is there a specific number to which how many nadis go into each of the chakras?
Not necessarily. Could be thousands. We don't know. It could be thousands. There are some literature that try to describe it, but I don't trust it. So, yeah.
What does vital energy exactly mean?
It's vital, like active. Physical
Okay.
almost. It's not necessarily physical, but it's constant motion.
Okay.
You know, when you say energy, it's something that's moving. It's something that gives strength. Okay, but they describe it as a male type energy. And they describe the mental energy as a female type energy, if that helps. I understand. Okay.
Is Sushumna the only, and its constituent nadis, the only one that does not pass through the petals but through the center of the chakra?
It's the only what?
Pathway that does not go through the petals, but goes through the.
Yeah, I guess, but the nadis are, it's all one nadi.
Mm-hmm.
We only break it up because of our lack of understanding. Sushumna is the flow of both nadis in balance.
One direction.
Yeah, in one direction in balance. So once the nadis come together and balance themselves and flow in one direction, that's Sushumna. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens when you raise 100%, let's say you're in the Mulahara, you raise 100% from the Nadi, then you move it to 100% to the sex center and everything below it dies. What happens at that point to the Mulahara? It's dormant again? It's devoid of energy?
Yeah.
So what happens to the sound of those petals within the Mulahara? They cease to exist or is risen up to the sex center?
They become dormant, but the power that activated that you need that in order to, and that's the key in order to open the sex center. And then when you drain all the power out of the sex center, that's the only key that can open the solar plexus center. You understand?
Yeah.
Because when the energy was deposited there, that's the energy that was with it in order to deposit it.
Like an extension, is that?
Yeah.
In
So-
order to go back,
so-
you gotta put it all back
They
there.
have to put it all back there. Yeah.
When you, following off Ivan's question, you pull energy from the Mulahara, do you, I don't know if cease is the right word, but do you no longer exist on that realm?
I can't. No, I wouldn't say that. Why?
When if you're pulling all of the energy away
Well,
from
you
that.
all aware.
Mhm.
You have full control.
You all aware. You understand?
When you pull the energy away, you're all aware.
You all aware.
So every time you pull it up, you're just having a greater level of awareness, basically.
Yeah. But you are, you're looking through that particular window and absorbing all the knowledge.
Mhm.
Like you can be aware of something but not be in possession of it. So you are not in possession of the higher energies above you, the higher power above you, but you are aware of it now. But you are in possession of the ones that you have opened and closed.
You'll have full control, full power of the Mulahara once you raise it to the
Yes.
sex.
Yeah. And remember, the Mulahara deposit within the Mulahara is all the knowledge of the upper chakras
So
in some degree.
So you see the
So
path.
you become aware, yeah. So you know the
Pathways.
pathway. Yeah.
So you would say the Patanjali, he probably drew the 8 limbs of yoga from his understanding of the Mulahara. Would you be able to say that?
Well, he was a great cosmic master, so
Where he got that from, we don't really
he
know.
was a great cosmic master. So I mean, he had already risen Kundalini many times. You know, the horror story that's told about his disciples, I don't know if you've ever heard about it. He gave his disciples that knowledge, and I don't know if there's a great number of them misused it and became black musicians. So, but because they released the power, I mean, they went and developed themselves too quickly. So, but it's a good thing to read.
What's that story?
The story of his disciples.
There's a book like specifically for that?
You know, just study up on him. Just find any book that gives his life story or whatever.
And if you use it on black, on any negative way, that will come back to you, you know. So
Yeah,
there's
of
no
course.
way of like, yo, I'm gonna use it on bad. It's only gonna hit you.
Yeah, it's only gonna come back to you.
Yeah, only gonna
But
come
see,
back to
that's
you.
the whole thing of the 8 limbs of yoga, though. They didn't do it properly. They didn't cleanse themselves
Exactly.
of the weakness that allowed them that attracted them to to the immoral things in life. So only thing they did was perpetuate. Let's say for instance, when you raise when you begin to develop psychic powers,
Yeah.
right? You become highly sexual.
Highly what?
Sexual.
Sexual.
Yeah, because the first level of the first level the Kundalini go to is the sex center. So you begin to when you develop psychic powers, you begin to see through your sex center. Now some people think they're looking through the third eye, but they're not, because the third eye and the sex center is linked and related. So a lot of times you can close your eyes and you can see pictures and whatever, and people think they're looking through their third eye. No, you're actually looking through your sex center or your solar plexus center. Now, but what happens, the more psychic energy flows through you, the more sexually virile you become. You begin to crave sex, because deposit there is this craving for sex, for the opposite sex. When you heighten that energy there. But the thing about it, you have to, that's why you go through the process of controlling it before you begin to do the concentrative and contemplative exercises. You work on trying to control your appetite for sex. And once you take control over that, then when you do raise the power of Kundalini and you become highly sexual, you can control that. But if you don't, then you become a sexual maniac. And you see, you can go out. Anyone that professes to be psychic and they haven't controlled their life, go and watch them. They're very sexual people. Because if they haven't controlled their sex, that's what happened to them. They get this huge appetite for sex, and they just go out of control. Because every time they open that center, a rush of that energy that's positive is there. They have this what they call kama. It's desire. The desire for the opposite sex becomes very, very strong. And not only that, now that they're psychic, they have the ability to control the opposite sex, and they can attract the opposite sex to them and just have their way with them. So, but it will lead to insanity.
Yeah, if it gets out of control, it's always bad.
Yeah, it will lead to insanity. So that's why you have to go through the steps of controlling yourself.
Absolutely.
All right. So next we will get into the specifics of the chakras. All right.
With the partial openings of the heart center, like throughout the day or through the specific practices, that's just a small amount of Kundalini raising up to it to open it, or it's activating?
Yeah, it's always a small amount, but don't limit your thoughts on that. Because a small amount of Kundalini can do many things. A strong man that lifts 400 pounds is a small amount of Kundalini. It's a little tiny amount of Kundalini. So someone who can manifest fire without the physical elements is a small amount of Kundalini. Okay, so don't be moved by that, by being a small amount of Kundalini. Another good way to balance your thoughts and actions, and to and to develop concentration is through healing and prayer. Okay, I practice in healing and prayer. That's a more balanced way to develop your psychic abilities and to help and to move you to the point where you can begin to practice working Kundalini because you're moving you're operating on a higher level of consciousness by doing those things. Service is always the best way to develop yourself. Service to humanity. Okay.
Outside of spiritual practices, what would trigger the opening or closing of the heart center?
What do you mean? I look at everything as spiritual. So,
Yeah, okay.
so you know,
I mean, like the examples of Ernesto and I were having lunch yesterday, and during conversation, I had the ringings in the ears a few times. And that's key points in the conversation. So I was like, what would trigger
Well,
them?
I look at everything as spiritual. I had one student to argue with me on that. See, everything is not spiritual, you know. And I kept telling him everything was spiritual. He became a black musician, so you know, he began to practice the black arts and just did all type of crazy stuff. And ended up spending time in jail, and after many years realized he was wrong. So don't go down that road. Everything is spiritual.
It is, yeah.
Everything is
spiritual.
spiritual. Everything is a spiritual lesson for you because you're on the journey of spiritual awakening. You know, so every single thing is spiritual. It's some degree. You know, it's a lesson that you must learn in order to get where you're going. And if your goal is to become more spiritual and become closer to God, because yoga means union with God.
Yeah.
That's what it means. It means union with God. So that's the journey you're on, to unite yourself with God. You know, and the only way you're going to do that is through your thoughts and actions.
I was reading some article. It says that it's about some kind of a UFO study. It's like there's other planet people. They're so spiritually powerful, and they're way advanced than us. And they say that an average human being of 75 years old is spiritually grown only 8 months. That's what they say. It's like we are races of we're races of people who have spiritually grown so little in this planet Earth. That's what they say. It's like, yeah.
Which magazine was that?
It was. I studied a lot about UFO and everything, like about the life on other planets. So there's a group called Palladian. There's some people they can contact. They just like with the mind.
Stay away from the Pleiadians and those channeling people.
But no, anyway, this is all about love and like, all the good stuff. Like only the positive stuff. I mean, I don't. But this is like, what's that?
Even so, stay away from.
All right. Yeah, I just was studying. This is like it's all about spiritual. Like everything has to start spiritual. I was watching a UFO, a documentary on YouTube. That's all it is. Yeah, it's like.
Well, you know, it's a lot of that. Some of that is true, not a lot, but some of it is true.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that Jesus did not come from this planet. If you go back to Revelations, I think it's the last page in Revelation. It's the last page, right? He states that I come from the house of David and the bright and morning star.
Yeah.
If you go back to the last page, and so what does that tell us? Bright and morning star?
Venus.
It's Venus.
I've heard some people say that that could be interpreted as Lucifer.
No.
That kind of scared me. I was like,
No. He was a great cosmic being, you know. In the teachings of Buddha, also Venusian from Venus as well. In his teachings, it states that he, in fact, I think there was either three or there was three stars at his birth, either 3 or 5.
five Buddhas.
It was 5 stars, 5 disc-like stars that was shown over his birth, you know, and anyway, the configuration at that time showed that a great one was coming from Venus, and that's just history. That's just history. Sri Krishna, he was one of the greatest to ever come to Earth and be born through a woman. He was from Saturn. according to the teachings of his students. Okay, so of course, you know, and of course they don't have a physical realm like us.
Yeah.
They live on the etheric, subtle realm.
That's what I found on my research. They says like they don't communicate with words. You all telepathic, and they can even dematerialize
Yeah,
their bodies, stuff like that.
They have the ability because they're avatars. They work way beyond the crown chakra.
Yes, exactly.
There's a whole nother set of chakras for them. but they they can travel through the realms.
Yeah.
If they wanted to, they can be on this physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or they can be on the lower astral realms or the higher etheric realms. You know, and all of this is in history.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could just go and study the occult teachings from various from the Buddhists, from the Hindu, or the Theosophical Society. Madame Blavatsky, she wrote the Secret Doctrines, Isis Unveiled. In her teachings, she clearly showed the connection to the other planets in the solar system. The Etheric Society teachings by Dr. Sri Yogi George King, he openly just tell you, he leave no mystery for you.
Mm-hmm.
He just tell you exactly, you know, who these beings were, and he connect the dots of the history so you can see and tell you where to go and read it or study it if you want to. But, you know, these things, and now, now it's on television.
Now it's on television. Even the Canadian Defense Ministry.
I mean, they get a lot of stuff wrong. The ancient aliens, they get a lot of stuff wrong, but it's there.
It's already,
Have you seen that movie John Carter?
Yeah,
Which is great.
Life on Mars and all that.
yeah. But it's,
I mean, it's crazy, but
It's a great.
they kind of connected it though.
yeah, but it's still that's crazy. You know, but those things are, you know, I mean, if we dismiss them, you know, something's wrong with us.
yeah.
You know, because and then if you study, go back to, I noticed this when I was just a little boy. I read, I was into reading the Bible,
Yeah.
and I read the story of Elijah.
Sorry.
Elijah.
Okay.
And Elijah was, when he turned his robe over to Elisha, right? And the chariot of fire came down and took him away. That didn't sound like no chariot of fire to me. As a little boy, it was the fire. The way the whole passage read was the fire was pushing and propelling the chariot, you know, and he jumped on it and went up into the heavens, right? So, but when you go and literally read and analyze those things, say, this no, wait a minute, this is, you know, they didn't have the knowledge of the mechanics and flight and all that, but they just describe, you know, they use words and terminology in their own time. But when you go back and look at it using our understanding and knowledge, it was a vessel that had some type of propulsion system that was pushing it. Just go back and read it. There's a little passage in there. So and it's all through the Bible, doing the whole Moses thing, you know. And I'm glad to see that that's on television now. Even though they get it wrong, it still opened the minds of people so that they can see that this is so, and that it was. And then of course science they can't find a missing link, you know, because there is no missing link.
And the governments already knows about it. They just don't want to publish this stuff to people. That's what it is.
Of course they know.
Yeah.
The ancient books, especially the ancient books from Atlantis, which is mostly in the Hindu and the Buddhist, the Mahabharata,
Yes.
the Ramayana.
Yeah.
All those books came from the Atlantis. In fact, they messed up the time scale or whatever. But you know, it clearly described atomic wars that was going on. It clearly described flying vessels,
Yeah.
shooting missiles. I mean, it's in ancient. I mean, they don't translate it in English now, but it's clearly there. When they describe those machines, you know, they were atomic weapons.
Yeah.
You know, and then now they done found the ruins of some of those cities, you know, all over the world. It's clear. It's clear that there were other civilizations that was here, and that they were very advanced, and that they had already traveled. And another thing, when they translated that, they had already in those ancient translations, they had mapped out the solar system.
Yes.
So they knew the distance between all the planets. How did these
Yeah.
primitive people know that? I mean, so-called primitive people, because they wasn't primitive. We have been here, man been here for at least 18 million years, and we destroyed ourselves at least twice in atomic war. So, and that's why. It's as simple as that. And it's right there in those books for us to read and study. So that we don't repeat the same thing.
Exactly.
You know? Let's go ahead and close out.
I have one thing to
Yeah, go ahead.
Why would the soul put itself in this predicament of lowering itself only to try to get back up?
$1,000,000 question.
That's the question.
Yeah.
That's a question that cannot be answered, but we just know that it did. And throughout all the ancient teachings, that's the one question that cannot be answered. We just know that it did.
We'll know when we get back to God.
Yes.
Well, like the more you go within yourself, meditation and everything, these kind of answers will come to you. You know, like you will know.
But that's one answer that don't come.
Yeah.
until you get to the highest level. You know, because why? That's a question we don't know. And when you study all the ancient teachings, you will see that. That's one question. They cannot. All other questions can be answered. That question will be answered when you connect yourself back to the source itself.
The source, yeah.
You know.
Why it involved itself to begin with. Why it involved itself to begin with.
Yeah. Why did it involve itself to begin with? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll say a little prayer before we close out.
Let's stop broadcasting.
Once again, to those who were not on in the beginning of the broadcast, in February we'll be switching to YouTube. We'll no longer be broadcasting via Ustream.
We'll show you how to do it.
So I'll send out an email to everyone who subscribed to our meetup, as well put the link on our Mystic Knowledge.org website. Thank you.
Ivan,